Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. I am Tamara Johnson Sheely. Good morning. Good morning. It is April 3rd, Saturday, April 3rd. Can you believe we are like already 4 months into the new year? I'm glad it's 2021. I'll take it. I'll take it. I don't know where my trusty co-host is this morning. I'm sure they'll be joining me in just a bit, but I have a special guest for you. I have been waiting to interview her for a second time. This is not my first interview with Dr. Kandiss Taylor, but guess what? She is in the house. So let me bring her into the broadcast. Good morning.
Good morning.
How are you?
Great. This is a great weekend.
It
So
is.
today's the day that everybody was sad, but tomorrow is coming.
Well, maybe that's why I've been feeling kind of heavy. I was heavy this morning. Yesterday was Good Friday, and then we know that our Easter story, and then today, and then he rose again. So, so we're gonna be okay, right, Dr. Candace?
Tomorrow is going to be the best day in history.
Amen. Well, welcome back. Welcome back. For those that don't know, you and I met virtually for the most part. I don't think we've ever met in person. Virtually, you and I both ran for the United States Senate right here in the great state of Georgia. We put in the work. We put in the work. That was a tough campaign. It was 21 of us. And my story with you, Dr. Kandiss, is that you and I felt something about you was different. I didn't know what it was, but I said, she is not typical. And when I say that, a Republican, I run as a Democrat, you run as a Republican. There was something about you that every time we had forums, I always felt like your answers to any of the questions, you were always trying to find balance. You were trying to find an opportunity for us to, get beyond our divide and how do we do things where all of us can benefit. So I heard that, and it wasn't one time, it was over the course of the race, and I just knew you were different. So we invited you to come after the race when we had our front runners, and those of us that fell behind, you came to the broadcast then, and I wanted people to see and hear you beyond the R behind your name, because I always felt like I said, you were very different.
Well, thank you for having me, Tamara, and honoring me and letting me come here with your people who may not have the same exact policy as me, but they believe in the values of our country and our state, and being heard, and their voice being heard and being represented. And that's why I ran, because I didn't feel represented. And I felt the same way toward you, 21 of us, and you were passionate. I could feel your passion when we were in our debates and in our forums. I could feel your passion and your love for Georgia and your love for the people of Georgia. And I felt that. And the fact that you were trying to fix a problem. And every time we talk, and you and I talk frequently because we're iron sharpens iron, and we believe that, and we sharpen each other. I feel this passion inside of you and this resolve to fix the problems. And that's why I went to counseling. I'm a counselor. And the reason why I did that is because I like to fix problems. And I don't mind confronting something. I can speak my mind and confront, but I try to do it with honor and respect, even just for someone who believes totally opposite of me, which is the case a lot of times with the far left and the far right. Most people are somewhere in the middle, and their voice isn't getting heard at all right now. And we have to have normal working class people run for office to represent us, because we don't have representation.
And I saw that with you. And I think that's why we connected. I know that's why we connected, because I think you and I both we do have that in common, where we are problem solvers, and we want to fix it. We want to figure it out, and we don't want to fight. Like, I don't want to fight. Like, how do we get this done and we don't have to fight? And we just, we find that balance and that middle ground. But I just want to thank you, Dr. Kandiss, for putting your hat in the ring again. you're now running for the Georgia, for governor of Georgia. How that is amazing. Congratulations for not just, running the first time, but, sticking and staying in this fight, knowing that we have to have representation.
I think that, I learned so much the first time, and I know you did too. We learned so much about the swamp of DC, but we also learned there's a swamp in Atlanta, and it's both sides of the aisle, people that don't care about us. And there are some people that do, and some people that are there with the right heart, but they're very far and few between. I went to all 159 counties. I talked to people all over the state, and they don't feel represented, and their representation in the Senate and the House at the state level, and then at the national level too, they don't feel like they listen to them. They say what they want to hear, which are the core values on both sides of the aisle for each party, but they don't actually do what they say they're going to do that affects us, like prison reform, like education, all these things that we need to address, that maybe our politicians won't get money for doing it. Maybe they won't get kickbacks from lobbyists and special interests, but it has to be done. And we have to elect people that don't care about money. And I'm not being funny. I'm being serious. They all care about money and how much money they can make. And whenever I was considering running, I wanted to run for my representative seat. Is what I wanted to run for. The representative in my district, he is a millionaire, and he has not done much for us as Georgians. And I knew I could win. I knew I can beat him. And the Lord really laid it on my heart to run for governor. I had a dream one night about speaking in front of a group of people, and me talking about Georgia and saying we have to put morality over money every single time. And we have to do that. We can't be bought off to Hollywood, China, special interests. We have to put morality first and our people first. And that hasn't been done. And, we have Democrat policies that are good things that are being, torn apart. We have Republican policies that are good things that are being torn apart, and they say they're going to do this and that, and it would be what actually helps the people, and it never gets done, ever. When they get elected, they never talk about it.
Well, let's start with a warm and fuzzy introduction. Like, tell everybody. I think that is, so important for a lot of people when they vote for their candidates. They really like to know who they are personally. So tell everybody who you are. I know you're a mom, you're a wife, you're an educator. So tell everybody who you are.
Well, I'm from South Georgia. I've lived here all my life in a little town called Baxley. And I was born in Baxley, actually. And I'll tell you a funny story. Hey, Robbie.
Good morning, Robbie.
I'll tell you a funny story real quick. So something personal, not very many people know. My mama weighed like 105 pounds when she got pregnant with me. And she gained like 55 pounds when she was pregnant. And that's why she waited 11 years before she had my brother. But anyway, she gained all this weight and she was overdue. So she went in, she had a C-section. And our local doctor, he was a doctor here for like 50 years, Dr. Bedingfield, he came in, he said, Tammy, what did you name her? She said, I named her Candy. And he said, well, I knew it was going to be Baby Ruth or Snickers or something. And so I weighed over 8 pounds, and was a healthy baby girl. And I've lived here all my life, except for Statesboro when I went and got my 3 degrees there. I have an early childhood degree. I have 2 degrees in counseling from there, school counseling. And then I went and got a PhD in Virginia Beach. It's Pat Robertson's University at Regent. And I got a PhD in counseling. I wanted to know how to be a Christian counselor. I knew how to be a secular one, but I am a Christian. I love Jesus. And it's more than just saying I go to church. I care about my relationship with Christ. And I think that that's so important. I've had people say, well, what if I'm not a Christian and you want me to vote for you? And I said, well, if you follow the teachings of Jesus, the theology is great. So I'm not going to lie to you. I'm not going to steal from you. And I'm going to be a good person. I'm going to love people. And that's what we need in Jesus, had healthy anger. He turned over tables when he was angry. So I'm going to fight for you. But I don't, like Tamara said, I don't want to fight with people. I want to fight for the right thing, but do it with words that are chosen to honor people and to fix real problems. We can sit on two different sides of the table and come together and fix problems. We're smart people and we can do that. So Dr. Ben Carson spoke when I got my PhD, and he really implored us as leaders getting our degree to get involved in government and not just leave it to the lawyers. Half the government are lawyers. And there's nothing wrong with lawyers, but half the people who in the workforce are not attorneys. And so we don't need half of them representing us. It should be representative of the people, by the people, for the people. So I really felt that day this burning desire inside of me that I would run one day. And I thought when I retired, which a lot of people do that, they wait until they retire and they're, more laid back and easygoing. And we don't have a lot of young people in government. And I think that we need balance. We need the wisdom of the older people, but we need the zealous spirit and passion of the young people. And we have to do a better job of encouraging younger people to run and supporting them and not blackballing them like I was done by my party and Tamara was done some by her party. We have to get away from that and reach normal working class people. They don't have time to get involved in politics. I don't have time. Tamara don't have time, but somebody has to do it. It's not for everybody, but when you feel that calling on your life, you have to sacrifice the time and give back, or we're going to lose our whole country the way we know it.
Good morning, Robbie. You want to jump in there?
That was a mouthful. Hey, Kandiss. I just appreciate you and Tamara, and you both are fascinating and interesting as a pair, especially because I don't know if people noticed, but you're white, Tamara's black, and you're a Republican, and Tamara's a Democrat, and you both ran in this race, and you both had, despite very, different sides, the exact same experience, which is why I'm so glad you're still in the game, right? This political game, willing to sacrifice your time, family, effort, energy, probably some personal funds as well. But if you want to talk a little bit about the experience running, because when I followed Tamara on her campaign and then met you, I realized that both of your parties, and I'm an independent now after witnessing what happened to Tamara and the experience I saw in City of Atlanta as a City of Atlanta resident with a predominantly Democratic run government for decades now, and what's happened to legacy residents in Southwest Atlanta under Democrats. So, and the inability to really influence government. So and I'm going to leave it to you here. When you ran, because this is what I saw with Tamara, basically the DNC practically worked against her. And from my understanding, and I don't want to put words in your mouth, but do you feel as though the Republican Party, in essence, kind of worked against you? Because as a citizen, I guess I need to know if we expect to have non-establishment, then we need a non-establishment candidate, which is why I'm so grateful that you're here again.
Yeah, I think that I probably had some great support for some of the GOP leaders. It wasn't all of them. I met some really great ones that are supporting me now that really are going to be part of my team and work for me. But then I experienced, and it was weird because it was almost in the big cities, even the big South Georgia cities, and then the big Atlanta cities, they were like pigeonholed in. They feel like, even the chairs who don't get paid any money, they feel like they've been serving for so long. It's not serving if you only are there for control and to blackball people who are not establishment. So they get attached to these politicians like celebrities, and they do not honor anyone else, even though the bylaws, everything's set up. If you're running for office, you're allowed to speak just like everybody else. Most of the time I got to speak about 2 minutes, but I went to places I drove 4 hours and did not get to speak. They would let the establishment candidate, the incumbent, or one that had ran for something else that was now running for this seat, they would let them speak. They would, and I was there with people running for sheriff and people running for other seats. But the point was, I was treated differently. And then when they did let me speak, it was like timing me at like 1 minute and 58 seconds, cutting me off. Didn't do that to anybody else. And they didn't want me to, they didn't want anybody to talk to me. They tried to like totally ostracize me and ignore me. And you got to think, I'm not making a fuss. Like, I'm going in real polite and quiet and kind of intimidated and sitting there and waiting my turn. And then I would get up to speak, and it's like the Holy Spirit would just rise inside of me with like this fire of, you know what? we're done with the establishment. We're done with career politicians. We're going to have different. We deserve it. We're tired of people taking our money and redistributing it and not caring about us and only caring about themselves, and they're creating tax holes and tax shelters and loopholes and do not care about the people. We've had enough of it, and we're going to have our voice heard. And it was like, shut your mouth. You are not allowed to talk anymore, little girl. I even had someone call me and offer me like $2 million, and wanted me, well, I say 2 million. Somebody said it was probably 5. They offered me a couple million. I took 2 in my head, but they said, if you'll sign this, this, and this for our PAC, we will give you this money. And I said, I'm not going to do that. If I cannot represent the people, I'm not going. I don't care about being a politician and having my name known. I could care less about that. I love my job in my small town. I'm a public servant now. I help the homeless. I help needy children, abused children. I love my job. I'm not going to be bought off. And they said, you'll never make it, little girl, and hung up on me. So I experienced that over and over and over, that if I did not succumb to their narrative and push their agenda, then I was going to be blackballed. And, I just believe the people, when they hear the truth, will get angry, and they'll say, you know what, I've had enough. And they'll start voting for the candidate and not the party. We have Republicans walking away from the Republican Party, wanting to start a Patriot Party. We have Democrats wanting to walk away from the Democrat Party because they're not being represented at all. And so we have got to start electing people that represent us and stop worrying about the R and the D, because we can find people who are in the middle who will do the majority of what we want. We're not going to agree on every single thing, but if they have a good heart and they're for the people, let's have good discussions. And you may not like Ben Carson, but I'm going to say this. He says something that's so profound. We are the smartest human beings on the planet. We can fix hard problems. They're not impossible. We can fix them with our intellect, with research, with people that are in the field, that are the experts. We can fix hard problems. We don't want to fix them. We want to have the people who have the money and the power speak and give us the money and never fix a problem. We got to stop doing that.
It reminds me a bit of like the pharmaceutical, what you're describing, like the pharmaceutical industry, where we're treating symptoms, but we never produce a cure because there's so much money to be made through the pharmaceutical treatment of symptoms for the people who run those industries. And I almost wonder if, we have an entire political industry and there's so much money in both parties keeping it alive. And, if our only choices are either establishment party candidate and they're both beholden to corporate, well, that pretty much, I mean, we just get, Tamara often uses the ball analogy. We just get tossed the ball. We only have 2 teams to pick from, and here the both of you are, completely different backgrounds, different races, different parties, yet you had the same experience in running. I mean, it's fascinating to actually listen. I think, Tamara, I don't know how you were treated as a woman, but when I saw the money that the DNC put into really running against Tamara, who had done it before, who had been, running multiple times, who had been loyal, I couldn't believe they were working against her to that capacity. And then I met you, and I was like, this is exactly what Tamara is describing. What happened to Kandiss is exactly what Tamara is describing. All this money went into Kelly Loeffler, and here you are, a real person, and I'm so grateful it's a real person running. You're right. It is for the people, by the people. If all of our politicians, career politicians, including Joe Biden, are wealthy beyond, have health care, have a personal gym, have private places to go to vacation, security and retirement for life, how do they relate to the average person?
They try, but they can't.
I mean, they're so far out of touch. Pelosi's a billionaire, able to trade. They don't even govern. They don't even discipline their own wealth creation. Voting on companies and stocks that they actually, they're part of. They make money off of stocks that they vote on.
It's like their conscience is seared. They've done it for so long on both sides of the aisle now. I know you said Pelosi and then, but there's Republicans just that or worse. Their conscience is seared. They do it for so long, they lose touch with humanity.
What it appears that this political industry, political game has been going on. It's become the norm, and I see that in a lot. Really conflicts of interest and lack of being in touch has become the norm. The company card, the use we have literally a taxpayer company card that citizens are funding for politicians' careers. Joe Biden is a career politician. That is amazing. That is amazing that his children went to private school based off of being a career politician. And I cannot align myself with either party anymore. But I will vote for a non-establishment candidate because I don't have another choice. That's in my viewpoint, that's our only way out. You want to keep the establishment, then vote for their candidate. Vote for the candidate that they fund, that they promote, that they pay for media advertising, and then we will keep exactly what we have.
The definition of insanity, doing the same thing over and over, expecting different results.
Yeah. So thank you for, exposing yourself, your family, because that's what happens when you run. I've seen it with Tamara. She'll take hit after hit. People are mad at her for just speaking on an opinion, for telling the truth about something, for calling something out, saying she's salty, bitter. She spent, years of her life running, dedicated to people. Her own party worked against her, funded against her. I'd be a little upset.
and I'm not, it's so disappointing, Robbie, because, when I tell the truth about something, I'm talking specifically to the issues, and people want to make it personal. I'm speaking like when, this stimulus that came down that Joe Biden promised $2,000 checks for everybody. These checks will be out the door. And then the checks end up being $1,400 minus $600 from the Trump administration. That wasn't what he said. Well, and people are okay with that.
And you were working with a young lady who needed like $600 or something, or very close to that amount in her rent. Because I remember that situation. You're like, that would have made a difference here. So I salute both of you ladies. I will not throw myself in that arena because I've seen it happen even as a community advocate. They'll come after your business, they'll harm your clients. And when you have a duty to your clients, you have to be protective of that. So much respect to both of you that you're willing to do this. And another thing I think y'all have in common is Tamara's fight for reparations and, the African-American community descendants of slavery in the US. You have something similar going on with Georgia rural farmers, where people are asking not for a hand out, but they want to be compensated for their work. So you have an interesting, I don't know if you want to discuss that a bit.
Well, farmers want to be paid for their commodity. They're tired of being just given subsidies, and they have to have them to function, but they want to be paid for their work and for what they're producing. And there's been so much, bureaucracy and legislation there that I must protect the imports from other countries more than we protect ourselves. Mm-hmm. And Georgia feeds the world. Agriculture is our number one business in Georgia, and we have to protect ourselves, and we have to feed Georgia first before we feed the world. And President Trump, he did this whole initiative, America First, and that's great. But if we don't put Georgia first, America's not going to be first ever. We saw Georgia in the news after the election everywhere. It was humiliating with our current governor and everything that was going on with the Secretary of State. It was just ridiculous. No matter who won, no matter the cheating, for Georgia to be on national news every time you turn on the television was humiliating to me, and as a Georgian. And we have to put Georgia first and help our people. We have to do that. Help our farmers. Yes, we have to protect agriculture. And this morning, it was funny you just mentioned reparations, because I was reading something that said that President Biden put $20 billion aside in this new stimulus thing for the renaming of highways that are racist. And I just felt sick. Like, okay, $20 billion towards that, but we can't even help fix a social issue, a deep-rooted racial issue in our country. And people that are against reparations, I was totally against it before, and now I'm researching it and processing this and the social programs that don't work, and the amount of money our government is throwing overseas into highways and mess like that, that we could fix a huge divide in our country. We've got to fix problems, and we've got to help people and give a hand up, not a hand out. We've got to do that. And y'all, they're not doing it. They say they're going to do something, and then they're doing this silly stuff that's just going to put us more in debt and make our dollar more unstable and cause inflation and hurt who? Us. It doesn't hurt you if you're in an ivory tower. It doesn't hurt you when your kids are at private school and they're able to do that. It hurts the people who are homeless. It hurts the people who work minimum wage jobs, and it hurts the people who are middle class. That's who it hurts.
So reparations, Kandiss, is a debt owed, and I've been talking about this, and I talked about this along the way on the campaign trail to the U.S. Senate, and I'll continue to talk about it. There's a House bill, HB 541 here in Georgia, that speaks directly to creating a commission that will address the impact of slavery on those who are descendants of slavery, and even Jim Crow and all the systemic things that came after slavery. So this bill is some great monumental legislation. I've talked to you extensively about it, and I will, what is your thoughts, on this particular bill?
Well, number one, what I would say to a Republican listening, because people are going to listen, because I posted this on my page and I told people to listen. Number one is, what does it hurt to research something? What does it hurt? We need to research. We need to educate ourselves and not be ignorant. I don't want to be an ostrich hiding my head in the sand. We have a divide. It is significant. And guess what? We need Black America to come together with us, white America, that's middle class, and fix these problems. And if we do not fix a problem that's been around for decades, and we're not willing to even listen and research, then we are the problem.
Yeah.
So I feel like this needs to happen. And like you talked about, you may have already said this before in your show, Tamara, but I'd like for you to talk about the number of Republicans versus Democrats that's even going to be on this committee.
So this commission creates, HB 541, it creates a commission of 11. Of this 11, 7 of them will be Republicans. We understand that this is an opportunity for, Republicans to have this dialogue. This is we have a trifecta. Our House, our Senate, and our governorship is all Republican. So this puts the ball in their court. So of this commission of 11, 7 of them will be Republican. 3 of them will be appointed by the governor. And that's why I've had the conversation with you, because if this bill doesn't pass in 2022, it will more than likely be reintroduced and end up, if you are our next governor, it will end up on your desk. But this gives the governor you will appoint 3 seats, and one of those 3 will be the chairperson. So it puts Republicans in a leadership position to address this. And I think it's great legislation. The end of it asks for policy recommendations. It doesn't necessarily say reparations, but it suggests policy recommendations. So this is an opportunity to have the conversation. This is an opportunity for Georgia. This is a national dialogue. We have HR 40 in the U.S. House. We have S40 in the United States Senate. We have bills that are being introduced in municipalities across the country and other states as well, that are California, that are specifically addressing reparations. But we understand that reparations is federal. It is a federal initiative. But Georgia has played a role in Georgia. Georgia is not, Georgia is guilty, and Georgia needs to reckon with it, and we need to have the conversation right here. So I've been talking to you, Kandiss, and I appreciate you, being open to this. Like I said, you didn't understand it. I won't say you were necessarily against it. You said you were, but when you talked to me, you gave me the impression you just didn't have enough information. You weren't informed enough. You didn't know that white America has 10 times the wealth of Black America. You didn't know that of Black America is 13-14% of the population, but we only have 2.6% of this nation's wealth. And that was not, that's by design. That's because of slavery and Jim Crow and black codes and redlining and no New Deal, no GI Bill, war on drugs, mass incarceration. It's all these systemic injustices that have been done to us as a people that have caused us not to be able to accrue generational wealth. We don't have any wealth. The data shows that by 2053, Black America will have zero net wealth. Kandiss, Black America is on a race to the bottom. And I'm just excited that you were open enough to hear that and thinking, and as possibly the next leader here in the great state of Georgia, that this will be something that you would definitely consider.
So I wouldn't say that I was against it. I just didn't understand it.
Mm-hmm.
And I, as a Republican, it's like reparations, no. And this is what I've heard said by people in the Republican Party. And I'm listening, it seemed kind of callous to me, but I was like, well, but they would say, we've never owned slaves, and nobody that's alive today has ever been a slave. And I would just think, well, we have human sex trafficking slaves right now. And
they benefited. Stay there with that thought. They benefited from slavery.
Right.
Georgia has benefited from slavery, free labor.
But people don't know. And that's what the Republican Party says. And they don't know. And I didn't know because obviously our schools aren't teaching it. And so for me as an educator, when I started having these conversations with you, with Robbie, and we started looking at this, I'm like, you know what? We say we don't want our history books changed. We want the truth. We don't want the kids to get this perverted view of history. I agree. And this is part of history. So we need to educate ourselves. There's nothing wrong with that and doing research. And when you start seeing the truth and blinders start coming off, you start wanting to fix the problem. And you start saying, you know what, this is an injustice and it's wrong. And we need to look at this and we need to figure out how to fix it. Instead of saying and pretending like there's not a problem and pretending like it doesn't exist, it's not going to make it go away.
Mm-hmm. You're muted, Robbie. Unmute yourself.
It's definitely not going away. I live in what's currently a predominantly African-American community for now. And I think both of you raised excellent points. Tamara's right. Georgia is guilty. And there is nothing wrong with getting information and figuring out the root of an issue, solving it so that we can all have some type of peaceful existence and prosper. And the failure to do that is very problematic. My entire community in underneath 20 has gentrified. And everyone predominantly here prior to the gentrification were lower income Black people. And the irony is the federal funding from the Beltline project that was supposed to empower lower income residents has actually harmed them. Has actually displaced them, foreclosed on their properties, had their property, gotten them evicted. And all those people are going to Tri-Cities and South Georgia and rural Georgia who are not prepared. And all we're doing is Atlanta's shifting a burden. And so now we see these, higher crime, higher enforcement costs on people, to your point, Kandiss. And it's happened under Democrats, who have not changed our planning system. To be able to utilize federal funds intended to assist people that actually causes harm, I'm not even sure how that's legal. It's definitely not moral. So if these people had been empowered, my neighbors, my former neighbors, they could have bought homes at 50, 60, 70,000 and had equity like I have right now. But that didn't happen because there were no large-scale job creation. There was no credit restoration. And it wasn't because it wasn't possible. It was because our city failed to plan. And when people and politicians, excuse themselves because it's happened on their watch by saying, well, this happened on the East Coast, this happened on the West. I'm sorry, this is happening all over the country. Yeah, but it happened first on both coasts. Meaning you had a heads up, meaning we were still affordable, meaning you let this happen. And now you want to make excuses. And so I'm so glad that Tamara's still here, that you're willing to take on this responsibility. Because if I have to choose between Governor Kemp and you, I'm going to choose a real person. We have a good old boy network that exists in Georgia. They're just enriching themselves, but it's on both sides.
Well, Robbie, everything you just said, the reason why it wasn't dealt with is because they were not going to make money off dealing with that. These people have no voice, and they can't pay them money on their campaign, and they can't pad their pocketbook, so they don't care. That is why I'm running. I'm sick of that. I'm sick of that. And when we were talking a while ago, and y'all were saying this, what came to me is it's more than just paying a debt. It's more than that. It's about healing. And for healing to happen, true healing, as a counselor, you get to the root, you fix the root, and people are able to see past themselves and the hurt and the pain, and healing comes. And for us to truly be one, I don't want to just exist with people of color. I want to love them. I do love my children at school. I do fight for them every day. But I want their parents not to look at me and think, she probably has it made. Like, I don't want them having that thought. I want them to think I'm their sister in Christ, and us to get together and fix problems together beside each other without having all these boundaries and these issues and these precepts in our minds, because we all have them. And people that say they don't are lying. They're lying.
Well, and to your point, if people had been provided reparations, they could have bought their own property.
That's right.
Now the properties have tripled value, quadrupled value, and people are priced out. So, and ironically, now Atlanta taxpayers, Georgia taxpayers are going to fund affordable housing. So we're basically going to pay developers to make money to pay. I'm sorry, I saw the word preach. To pay for low-income housing that people are not going to gain generational wealth from. Habitat houses do not appraise later. They don't. The people, and if you look at Habitat's salary, the CEO of Habitat, they make a lot of money, and that's a nonprofit. This system is extremely damaging, and it costs us all. And our corporate folks, they're fine. Home Depot's making huge money building. The airlines are making huge money. And we're funding it all. We're funding it all, and we're not clear because our politicians, they're fine with it. They've got their medical, they've got their salaries, they've got their homes, they're on ID, and we can't even get information.
And power.
Yeah, we literally can't even get correct information from media, which, by the way, where's David?
David's off today.
I thought of him because, he's always referencing the media, and his information is always so skewed because it's literally just what the corporate folks allow to be released.
Yeah, the media has us divided, and the establishment has us divided. And so, people talk a lot about on the left, on the right, on the Republican side, they talk a lot about the media. But for me, the establishment is just as bad as the media. They only tell us what they want us to hear. They don't tell us the truth, and they don't care what we say. It's like pat you on the head and go back and work and pay taxes. Pat you on the head, go back and be homeless and live under a bridge. They don't really care. They don't. And what I was going to say a while ago is, for me, when Tamara first asked me about reparations, I said, you know what? I don't want to take money from the national, increase the national debt and print more money and go further in debt. I'm worried about the dollar and inflation. I'm so far past that now with all these, taking out these trillions of dollars. And so now I'm kind of ticked off about it. Like, we could have fixed this problem 100 times over.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Why are we not taking care of our people first? If you're going to print this money and you're going to have a national debt, let's at least fix the racial divide. Oh my gosh, pay them for what they are owed, and let's get it right. Let's get it straight. Let's get it right. That makes me so mad when I'm seeing where all this money is going, and I'm like, okay, I don't want y'all printing money, but at least let's fix this at top priority. Like, let's make this a top priority. It just makes me furious. I don't understand it, but I know why, because they don't want to fix it. They want us divided. They want us to not come together, because when we come together, they lose. They're not in control anymore. They don't have power anymore. And we actually fix the country, and they don't want that.
That's it, Kandiss. That's it. So I'm gonna actually give you some words, and you can tell us what you want to know, what you want us to know about these particular words. I'm gonna start with George Floyd.
When I think about George Floyd, I think just the horror of this breathe thing. Because when I think about breath, it was so traumatic for me to hear that over and over. I can't breathe, because God he breathed life into clay. That's how we were created. So breath is a very sensitive thing for me spiritually. And then for his story to have just created this eruption of emotion all across our country and divide, then it's a sensitive subject for me, because I don't want the country at war. So it's just, I hate what happened to him. It was horrific. But the breath thing, and when I hear his name, I think about that breath, and it really, like, it's hard. Oh, goodness. Marijuana for me, my brother is a drug addict, and his first experience with drugs was marijuana. And, they always teach it's the gateway drug, and it's that. So for me, it started out, from him progressing from that, to snorting Xanax, to doing pain pills, to shooting up pain pills, to taking meth. And he's been in 8 rehabs, and he's been in and out of jail, and he's become institutionalized by our system. And there's no rehab facility that actually works in our country. Mental health is in a terrible place in Georgia. So marijuana for me has this very negative thing in my brain. But then I know that, for some people, it's been a huge saving grace with cancer and with other illnesses. So I think that it's a double-edged sword for me.
Voting rights.
I just want every fair legal vote to count. Every single one. I want what the people want. If they want a Democrat, I want that. If they want a Republican, I want that. I want every fair legal vote to count. And I want the Republicans to quit pushing this, that we've done so much, and they're causing us to divide, with the Democrats thinking, oh my gosh, they've done this or hurting us, when in reality, we still have dominion, which can be totally manipulated, the system. And so it's like a smoke and mirror show. And I'm so frustrated with that. I'm so frustrated with that whole smoke and mirrors thing. We need dominion gone. And all the other issues are issues that are causing divide. It's a distraction from what we really need. So fair legal votes counting, dominion gone. That would be what I would do with voting immediately.
Yeah, I want to kind of elaborate on that, because right now, Georgia everybody's watching us nationally because of the bill that was just signed into law by Brian Kemp, which, says you can't give water or food in line. And like you said, you think it's bigger than that. And it's like the shell game. And they're making you pay attention to the things that they're doing to suppress the vote, when really it's bigger than that. And dominion, for those that don't know, is the technology, is the voting machines themselves. And there's the discrepancies there. Like, are these machines really tallying these votes correctly? And when you talk about one vote, one person, are our votes being shifted? Are our votes being, what's really going on with the technology? And so I don't want anybody to confuse what you're saying. So what I'm hearing you say is, we're paying attention. It's like I say, the shell game. They make you pay attention to one thing, but really they're over here doing something else.
That's right. So the issue we asked for in the voting, what was it called, a task force, they asked for dominion to be gone. That was number one. That hasn't been touched. The reason why, they were saying it's an algorithm and it goes to these servers in Italy and blah, 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 blah. Forget it. That ain't even no. You can move folders. Say Tamara ran, and this happened to Tamara. I watched it on video. Happened to me. Happened to many of us running in our Senate race. Her vote, say she had 1,000 from this county. Drag and drop to Warnock. Mine. Drag and drop to Kelly Loeffler. It happened. That's a click of a button. That should not be a thing. That should not exist. These machines should work as a tallying. And then you go to the paper copy that you print and you're able to count the paper and it matched that tally. This is how the elitist, the establishment stay in. They know we have their number. They know we're done on both sides of the aisle. And they're going to stay in with dominion. Everything else that they just did was smoke and mirrors.
You know, it's fascinating because both parties are having an issue with voting reform, right? But the media just keeps telling everybody the election was totally legal. Everything's fine. Everything's over.
And I'm not saying Trump won. I'm not saying Trump won. Biden could have won. I don't know who won, okay? I don't know. I just know I watched video that was recorded of people who moved those votes around, of people who were concerned, that were poll watchers. I've seen the videos. They're actually going back in some of these states that were turned at the end, and they're doing hand recounts, and they're looking at the system and how it went in and what was shifted, and they're watching people on the ballot, and a whole Republican set moved to Democrat. A whole Democrat set moved to Republican. One person voted for Kandiss Taylor. It was erased completely off the ballot. That person even cast a vote for U.S. Senate. Those kind of things. And it's happening in every state. And I don't know what's going to happen when they come with their findings, but these are preliminary findings I'm hearing from states all over the country. It's a real thing. And it's not about an algorithm. You know, the algorithm could have been there. I don't know about the algorithm. It's smoke and mirrors. They don't want us to know the truth. If you had this many issues with a system, why wouldn't you just do away with it and go back and do a tally, simple tally? Why? Because they want the system. It's what they're using to control. So why am I running? Because if we keep dominion, we're probably going to keep the same governor.
You know, it's fascinating. When I went to vote last time, I had my phone with me. And I wanted to take a photo, but you know, we can't video in the voting precincts or wherever they are. We can't photograph, we can't anything. And honestly, at this point, I'm not even sure why that is. I went to court the other day in Atlanta for a traffic ticket. I had been there 5 times because the cases keep getting reset. It was a stop sign. I didn't stop good enough. And each time I have to show up, and when you go in, no recording, no cameras, no phones, no videoing. And I'm like, what is there to hide here? Exactly.
Right.
We're not in a courtroom of justice. You know, are we not in a voting area? If I want to take a photo of myself and my own, what I'm doing here, what exactly is there to hide that we cannot video or document in our own courtrooms or voting facilities?
Transparency. We need transparency. We have our cops on the street with cams on, webcams on, but we don't have them in our prisons. Why? Mm-hmm. These are the most vulnerable. When you take a person into custody mm-hmm. and you put them in a cage like an animal, mm-hmm. they are the most, you should take care of them more than you take care of anybody. They have to be fed. They have to make sure they have a place to go to the bathroom. They are at your mercy, totally at your mercy. A grown adult at your mercy, totally coherent. They're not, mentally ill. Some of them are, but I'm saying normal people are arrested. And no webcam, no transparency. It's wrong. Our government has no transparency. It trickles down from the top all the way down to the bottom, and we got to do better. We have the technology to do better. Dominion shouldn't even be a thing. That is, to me, it is totally insane and blatant. There's no excuse for it.
I just applaud you, Kandiss, for, like I say, staying in the fight. I know how hard this is. I ran 4 times consecutively, so I know how taxing this can be on you mentally, physically, your family, your friends. This is a lot. This is a lot. So I just want to say thank you for staying in the fight and running again.
And I am a public school educator. I'm a public school educator, so y'all have to keep in mind, I have a certification. I have to be careful. I have to keep my job totally separate. And I do that to the nth degree. And I document everything I do all day long at work. So if anybody ever questions, they know what I'm doing. But it's almost like I feel I'm harassed, not by my local system, but other places. I'm already hearing things and little tricklings. And I'm like, I'm not going to be bullied out of running for governor because I'm a public school educator. I'm not going to have that happen. And I've never sued anybody in my life. But that right there would cause me to sue somebody because it is wrong for people to be blackballed. I'm so tired of that and them controlling every little thing.
It's this two-party system that is, you have the establishment on both sides that are controlling the narrative. And then you have the Trump supporters. I actually had a conversation on this past week, and we were talking about Trump supporters. And I said, when I ran, I remember in 2016, this was the funniest thing. I went and was door knocking, and I knocked on somebody's door, and he had a Trump sign, but I wasn't afraid to have a conversation with this man. And he and I had such a great conversation. He put my sign next to his Trump sign.
Oh, I feel the Holy Spirit.
So it's like, what, everybody and the conversation I was having this week, the conversation I had this week, we were talking about Trump supporters, and they dismissed Trump supporters as if they were all racist and they were all bad. Now there's racist, and this was my answer to them. I said, it's overt and covert. You got overt racism and covert racism, and it's racism on both sides of the aisle. And I've experienced racism inside of the Democratic Party personally. So I know that it exists. They try to hide it and cover it up and make it look like, oh, we're all under this one big tent together. And, it doesn't exist. It absolutely does. It absolutely does. So I don't dismiss people because they're on one side of the aisle or the other. And that's why I wanted to invite you here, Kandiss. I believe in your candidacy. I wish you well, because I know that your heart is true. Like, you really do want to get this right. You run as a Republican. I run as a Democrat. But there's a place in the middle, Kandiss, where you and I where we meet. And this is what women do. That's why I want to see more and more women in leadership. This is what we do. We talk this thing through. We try to figure it out. We get to the root of the problem. We're all about solutions. We don't want to fight. That's not what we do. So that's why I'm encouraged by having more and more women in leadership. And I just thank you for running. And I'm glad that we met along the way.
Me too. And I want to say to your followers to please encourage Tamara to run. And Robbie says she won't run, but I try to encourage Robbie too. But Tamara has to run for a seat, a big seat, because she's brilliant and she has a heart of gold and she's a rare gem. They're not there on both sides. So y'all need to encourage her to run. Y'all be praying with her. I've been praying for her to hear from God on what to run for. So y'all join with me.
Yeah, I'm trusting God. I haven't dismissed, another run. I have not. I'm just waiting for God to really settle it in my spirit. It took so much out of me. I ran in 2014, 2016, 2018, 2020. Every 2 years I've been pounding the pavement, and each time I've gotten closer and closer. In this U.S. Senate race, I came in 6th place. I was, delighted about that. But it just takes so much out of us. And I know that the messaging has to precede me. Like I said, I stand very firm on reparations and the repair that needs to happen for Black America, because I know, and I know in my heart and in my spirit, that it benefits white America. It benefits all America when we get to the root of what's hurting the least of us. And right now, Black America needs that support from America. Like I said, it would help all American. It would particularly help here in Georgia. So having this HB 541, which I'm, leading this advocacy on, and I'm really dedicated to getting the messaging out. And if I see the opportunity, and if God is, speaks and says do it, I'm not opposed to running again.
Well, I was going to say, you're thinking about your people. I'm thinking about white America and how we need your people, because we are the same people. Same Holy Spirit. Robbie asked me the other day in a meeting, she said, was Jesus white? I said, no, he was Hebrew. And she said, okay. And what's crazy, my daughter, it was crazy. I've not told anybody about that conversation. Well, my 13-year-old yesterday was trying to look at pictures of Jesus because it was Good Friday and we're talking about his crucifixion. And she said, Mama, this isn't how Hebrews look. They look like this. And she's researching this and really thinking through it. And she said, are they more black than white? I said, baby, they're Hebrew. It's not about being black and white. We try to put Jesus in a category. He was Hebrew. And he was a beautiful man, I'm sure, because he was perfection. It doesn't matter. But he wasn't white and he wasn't black. He was Hebrew. And that's okay. We can love him for who he was, and we have to get over this color thing. But it was just interesting because we talked about that the other day, and then she was like looking at pictures, trying to figure out exactly what he looked like yesterday. But we do.
Go ahead.
No, I was just saying we have to come together as a one people. And I think that this talk and research and this bill is vital.
Well, and I'm just grateful that, you both not only are willing, but you'll speak plainly about it, because we can agree to disagree. But I've been in rooms where people won't even allow the dialogue. They won't even allow the discussion of things that are challenging or make them uncomfortable. And, Kandiss, you're right. We do have to make sure, like, when you're preparing your home, your house has to be in order if you're really going to serve anything else. When you're on an airplane and an emergency happens, they say, put your mask on first. If we don't even have Georgia, house in order, how on earth can we produce food if we are, food producers for the world, which is going to be really important, by the way, given the way things are going. And to Tamara's point, which you came in sixth with no establishment money. So that's not a small feat. You came in sixth with no establishment money and the establishment working against you. So do I agree with everything Republicans or Democrats? Nobody does, but there's value in both. I don't want big government anymore. And I definitely don't want social programs that don't ever reach the people they're intended to reach. And I don't want, oversight, which would be kind of a democratic component. People don't go for drugs when their quality of life actually has access to improvement. And that's what's not happening. I've seen the same homeless people, homeless for 10 years. All this money gets thrown, around for homeless people. It never gets to the homeless people. It's the strangest thing I've ever witnessed.
And these social programs, Robbie, I was looking at an article on Instagram, and the lady was talking about it on her job. She was offered a $2 and some sort of raise. And because she would lose her housing and she would lose her ability to remain in this program, she didn't want to take the few dollars extra because she didn't want to lose her housing. So, it keeps a lot of these programs keep you trapped in the system. Reparations is going to be the answer. It is going to be the solution. And I like I say, HB 541 is what we're pushing here in Georgia. And I just appreciate Kandiss. And Kandiss, I will say this for those that are watching that, it's always people that are going to try to pick you apart and say things. But let me tell you, Kandiss I'm not going to always get it right. I don't always get it right. So please expect me to get it wrong. Kandiss is not going to always get it right. Please expect her to get it wrong. But I can tell you, both of our hearts are definitely in the right place. And we love Georgia.
We do. We love Georgia and we love the people here. And I'm not going to get it right. And I could have said things 10 years ago that are totally, I would just kill myself now for saying you grow. And if you're not on a journey to grow, then you're irrelevant. We have to grow. We have to talk to each other. Iron sharpens iron, and we have to hear from people who are not all about the money. And I'm a lot more comfortable. I went to an event 2 days ago in a warehouse kind of environment, no air conditioner, no heater, with it was like a packing house for trees, for flower trees. And I was more comfortable there with people who'd been at work all day and talking to them. We prayed together. We talked, had an open conversation with people of color. There was a few white people there. It was the best thing versus going in a room that I paid $500 to go to an event that I don't want to pay for, but my campaign manager's like, you have to go. And it's all these people that look at me like, what is she doing here? Mm-hmm. That is what you get with the establishment. That is the establishment. I'm going to start taking a picture. I'm going to start taking pictures of them when I go and how they act and look and posting that. Maybe that'll help people wake up and see, hello, this is who we put in office.
Yeah.
Because they're not like us.
No, and they have a club, and they're all buddy in that club. And it's exactly what you said, Tamara. These policies are punitive, and we need to go beyond Democrat or Republican and get to policies that work. Kandiss, you're right. I mean, I'm for representation, don't get me wrong, but changing the name on a street or a highway means nothing if you don't make the policy work for the people that you're making the name sound like reparations.
Well, let's
I'm done. Yeah, we need priorities. These proclamations in non-substance alone are not sufficient.
Kandiss, I want to thank you for joining us. I see your screen is freezing. You probably can see it kind of coming and going, but I want to thank you for joining us. You are a friend to this broadcast. You are a friend of mine and Robbie's. You are welcome back. And I actually want to make sure that you come back as you start to make your way around the great state of Georgia on the campaign trail. We want people to see what you're doing and what you're talking about and where you're going. Like, we want to really be here for you as you venture out and primary in Brian Kemp. Let's make sure we keep you in the forefront here.
Thank y'all for having me. I love you both with all my heart, and y'all be praying for me, and y'all still meet with me and help me, right? Because y'all educate me.
Yes,
right.
yes. Thank you, Dr. Kandiss. We'll see you soon.
Okay, thank you.
Robbie, this is a great broadcast. Georgia is in for some, she's gonna give Brian a run for his money.
Between her and Brian Kemp, that is an easy choice for me. Mm-hmm. Brian Kemp is in bed with his own good old boy network. He's playing both sides. He's not honest. He's an establishment politician. Why on earth would I not choose a real person willing to have a conversation and willing to have dialogue? The entire energy of this broadcast was completely different. I don't know if you noticed, it was chill. Mm-hmm. And I was not going to miss it. We're renovating back here. I don't know if you see that ladder, but I was not going to miss it. The fact that she's a Republican will come on and just say plainly there was something wrong. It is a shell game. This is an establishment. It happened to me. It happened to Tamara, and recognize those differences. To her credit, she's playing about it. And I'll take that any day than someone giving me a false narrative and making me say, no, this is really how we are. This is how we are on paper. But I am seeing what's happening in the streets.
Mm-hmm. 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 She says, is she launching her campaign now? Yes, she has launched her campaign, and she is running for governor right here in the great state of Georgia. We will keep her. We'll definitely keep her in our prayers, and we're definitely going to have her back. And we're going to watch. We're going to watch as she primary Brian Kemp, because we got to have leadership in this state that is, that's representative and willing to bridge the divide. We have the hard conversations that don't even feel hard. we keep talking until we get through it and we get it out. So Robbie, thank you for another great broadcast.
Thanks for having me.
Yes, ma'am. Every week we give voice to issues, activists, and activism right here in the great state of Georgia. Please support our broadcast. You can go to tamaraforgeorgia.com. Cash app us, y'all. This thing is for real. We're serious about this. tamaraforgeorgia.com. We got some stuff coming up in the month of April. Get ready. Cash app us. Support this broadcast. Support what we're doing, because we're trust me, we're making some bold moves and bringing some bold issues to the forefront. I am Tamara Johnson Shealy. You can find me at tamarashealy.com, and you can always find Miss Robbie Caban at robbiecaban.com. And we will see you next week right here next week. Have a great week, everybody.